Hi there, hi there. I am going live, making sure everything's up. It's a new year, it's been a while. But I think it's all good. So, hi there. It's 2024. I got to tell you, my end of year, start of new year, it was a little rough. I ended up having to go into the emergency room. I thought I was having a heart attack. Turns out it was just heart palpitations, and I have another autoimmune condition. So I'm a little drugged up, but we are still going to do this live. Still going to go out there with it. I'm good. We have. It was a little scary for a few days there, but it's now diagnosed and it can be treated, so it's not a big deal. But it was a little start of a scary of 2024. So we're going to play off that that's going to be the end of all this stuff. And and it will be all good from here on out for 2024. And especially as so many people are struggling in different ways. So that was mine, was a little bit of a health scare for a second. But it's an autoimmune. It's fine. It will be there. But it's a little scary. It was not something I had ever experienced before. So but I had this topic up. I'm going to start this year off. We're going to do lives right off the bat. So we're going to get into this. And today's topic is kind of playing off of giving a benefit for others of tips I learned and I heard from other people and kind of trying to pay it forward and spread it out. So as most of you know, I co-wrote a book, Lead Without Blame, with Diana Larson. And it was published actually over a year ago. So it's kind of crazy. It's already been past a year. But I thought I would share a little bit in terms of some of the tips I got, but also some of the things that I learned along the way, at least some of the top ones that came to my mind with this. And so one of my biggest fears when I was writing the book was, what if I accidentally don't attribute something, or I accidentally forget something in some regard and I just don't do it service, right? Like a lot of times, especially in the agile space, it kind of feels like a melting pot. There are things that I'm like, did I say that? Did somebody else say that? Is that my idea? I don't always know for sure. And so it was a big fear and concern that I had. And we tried to source as much as we absolutely can. And then it was important to Diana too. And so we actually made an effort to put in the end, if we accidentally missed anybody in any way, to please let us know and we'll figure out how to correct and rectify it, because it's definitely not our goal. And just by being transparent about that, just by being like, hey, here's my big disclaimer. I used to do that in my presentations as well. I would put a big disclaimer. It's like, I've been supported and helped learn in so many different ways that it's sometimes hard to know where the source of everything is. And so that was a big important thing. And it was a way for me to honor it, attribute, but also acknowledge I'm human. And if I miss something, we're going to be transparent about it, that it isn't our intent and where we're going from that. So that's one thing, is just kind of knowing that as your best of intents, you're still possibly going to do something. So be as transparent as you can about it. And people were very understanding and supportive from that. So next tip, next fear that resulted in a tip was, like, I speak all the time. I do these lives. I probably say dumb things on a regular basis, but somehow putting them in a book seemed way scarier. Putting them in a book made it feel like I needed to be 100% correct and 100% like blowing up epiphanies and things along those lines. And Mike Cohen actually was like, if you're not growing as you're writing, there's something wrong. Like I actually got to witness somebody like walk up to him with his book from like 10 plus years ago. He's like, on page 26, you said, he's like, yeah. And I'm now saying this because I've learned X, Y, and Z. And I think in knowing that other people, everybody grows, you continue to grow. And there are a lot of things I once thought that I didn't think now, or that's evolved. I mean, just on a different basis. And so that kind of like permission to write what you believe right now, write what you feel, write what you've experienced today, that's helpful. And it's okay if it grows and it develops and evolves over time. It doesn't need to be like etched in stone. And I think that permission was huge in just letting me let go of the pressure and the additional responsibility I was putting on writing a book from that. The next one that I want to highlight was I had a lot of fears when I was writing a book. So here's the next tip associated to a fear of it. Was my fear was, what even if I attribute, even if I source, should I be saying something somebody else has already said better? Right? Diana and I built off of, Daniel Pink's work and David Marquet's work and other people, Esther Derby's work. And Esther was actually the person that gave me this tip of, I don't remember exactly how she said it, but I was highlighting that this was my fear. It's like, what if I'm just saying something you've already said and you've said it way better and you're the source of it and it should just be coming from you? And her response to me was, but maybe somebody needs to hear it in your voice, in your experiences, in your application. And as long as you're sourcing and attributing it, you're actually pushing along that work. You're actually amplifying that source's work. And so in a lot of ways, it was kind of like acknowledgement and a tip for me to say, I can highlight how I've used something like Esther's work or Husband's work and things like that, but I'm amplifying that work and not just like stealing it or projecting it as if it's mine. I'm sourcing it, I'm amplifying it. And I'm also highlighting how I used it, which can extend off of it. I've watched a lot of things that I've done and people used it in different ways than I did it the first time. And I'm like, oh, that's great, right? And so as long as you are sourcing, it's not a matter of somebody might need to hear it from your experience, your voice, your delivery, than what I needed to hear it from the original source at that time. And so that gave me a lot of like ease in terms of not feeling like I was stepping on somebody like Christopher Avery's shoes or feet and that I was amplifying his work. And that was helpful for me while I was writing. So I wasn't panicked about what I was sharing and why I was sharing it along those lines. The next one, I think Diana and I have talked about it, but I will say this in terms of writing a book, I don't know if I could ever write not collaboratively. Like watching what happened with everything Diane and I write about in the book in terms of co-intelligence and building off of each other and finding ideas and having something she said trigger some idea in my head that I wasn't even thinking about. The collaboration, I mean, granted, I collaborated with Diana Larson, so I mean, you can't get any better than that, but it's like the best of just some of the fears that you were building up in terms of writing. You're not doing it alone. You've got somebody that's telling you you're not crazy. You've got somebody that's working with you, that's building off your ideas, that is excited with you through the whole thing. And so I will say if I ever wrote a book again, I would want to do it collaboratively. Diana's a hard act to follow though. And so that's a little scary on a different front. But definitely every time I thought, well, this is crazy, this is not, she would able to come into the picture. And so I mean, aside from just time and dependencies, and I'm way better when I feel like I don't want to let somebody else down and getting things done, because that's one of the biggest things you'll hear about writing a book. It just takes a long time and it's a little overwhelming. So having that collaborative partner is beneficial on so many fronts. Okay. Next one is when you're writing, everybody said this to me, like people who've written tons of books from across the board when I've talked about the fact that I was going to write or do something, people have said this all over the place. It will evolve. Like what you start off with, what your pitch is, what your outline is, nothing like the end thing. I mean, I'm sure there's some people who built their book off of a class or something, and maybe it did look like what it did when it started, but it did not in our way. And that was one of the coolest parts was from the collaboration, was letting it evolve, letting it develop and see where we started going with it. And that's where I'm going to kind of go into a bonus tip. A little bit of this is, I know in the agile space, this shouldn't be a shocker, right? But get feedback on a regular basis. Now, I know, plan a little, do a little, learn a little. I get it. And I will also say, when we sent out that first rough, horrible, ugly, not even spell checked, doesn't flow, horrible draft version, and we only sent it to a couple people, like highly trusted individuals in our network, I still almost threw up sending it. Like, so, I mean, I can talk a good game about the growth mindset. I can talk a good game about like feedback is important. It still made me almost vomit when I hit that send button, because it's still just, you're basically in that first round of feedback going, do we have something here? Is this valuable? What's the threat? Like, what are you seeing here? because we've been in it for so long. It's taken us so long to get to this point. What do you see? And as hard as that was to send, it was huge in terms of actually some of our feedback. Two of the individuals that gave us feedback helped us find that thread, helped us actually see what we couldn't completely see that was starting to form, and gave us that like core thing all the way through the book. And as hard as that was, it was probably the coolest thing that happened while writing. It wasn't about just, at that time, we were just brain dumping, just writing, just brain dumping, venting, just highlighting passionate things that we were talking about. And then it was a matter of then going, oh, fresh eyes, and what they could see that we couldn't anymore, right? In that moment. And so that's part of why it evolved, right? It's part of the why it changed as it went. And it was okay, was because it was even better now. And so get that feedback, find people. Adam Grant calls it a challenge network. And I love that sentiment. Find people that are not going to just blow smoke. Like, yeah, first draft is not good. That first draft, it doesn't flow, doesn't sound, like, but they're looking for that thread, that value, that nugget that you're hitting in there to build off of. And then that's what we evolved from. And it was just freeing to like kind of let it go and watch it evolve. Now, I will tell you, in writing it, this perfectionist kind of dynamic that I sometimes have, which I know is hilarious because I'm far from perfect in everything I do. I also got told a lot of times you're going to constantly want to change. You'll constantly see something. And I remember being judgmental and reading somebody else's book and going, how did you miss that mistake? For all of those people, I'm so sorry. For all of that judgment, I'm so sorry. I didn't understand. I didn't understand how long it takes to really develop and build that content that you want. And then by the time you're editing, how it plays in. So the more that you can get feedback, the more that you can find people that will challenge it and amplify it. Diana and I are very, very grateful for the people that stepped up and helped us, sometimes on very short deadlines, to getting it done. The last tip that I want to highlight and call attention to that I selfishly got, and not everybody's going to get this luxury or this privilege. If you can find somebody that has done it already, whether it's self-publishing, whether it's publishing with a company, a publisher, there were so many times that I was like, Diana, is this normal? Diana, is this okay? Diana, what does this mean? And that she could compare it with different situations. Even if you're not collaborating with that person, reach out to people. When those that write books, it's not about making money. It's about putting content out. It's about sharing that information. It's people do it for many, many different reasons. But one of the things that I am finding, and even in doing this, I have very little experience. I did one book, right? There's so many people out there that have done several. Reach out, ask them for their tips, ask them for their information. Because I had the luxury of being able to do that on a regular with Diana. And it was incredibly comforting, rewarding, supportive, but also encouraging. And because it didn't feel like you were crazy as you were trying to do this, as you're writing, or as you're like, get this huge thing. You're like, they want us to do what? Or, who does the pictures and how does the cover art happen? And just little things that I would have never known about, especially as a first-time author. So reach out to people. You might be surprised how much people are willing to give that information. I am very grateful for the people that were willing to give me tips for things that they had done, from Richard Lawrence to Rothman to Diana Derby and Mike and Cone. All of these individuals were helpful, and everybody's experience is slightly different. So seek those tips, seek those things. It was a really cool experience, and I'm very grateful that I did it. So those are my tips from writing specifically and what I experienced. Probably one of the coolest things that I never thought I wanted to do. Actually never planned on doing, and probably one of the things I'm most proud of. So what do I have coming up? I have a busy month this month. My ACSM is sold out, so there's no more seats for this go around. The next one is in April, virtual, so definitely get into that. That is really focused on building facilitation skills so that you can help the team make decisions and not having to just be the mediator all the time. So it's really about engaging all the voices, helping them come together for decisions. So check that out in April is the next availability. My impactful training. Oh, I got a question and I'm going to answer it because it comes in a little bit late. How did you go about finding a publisher? So I will very much acknowledge. Let me put this up here. LinkedIn user, I can't see who you are, but hi, thank you for the question. I acknowledge my privilege very much here. There was an editor at a publishing company who had been attending the various Agile conferences looking for people that she wanted to write, that she really liked how they spoke, what their content was. And this particular editor had been really reaching out to me for many years, trying to get me to write. And I'm like, no, I'm a speaker. I'm not a writer. And she was relentless and did not give up. And eventually she actually reached out to both Diana and I individually, and then we were able to come together. So I didn't go about finding a publisher. The publisher kind of came to me, which I acknowledge is very abnormal. This particular editor was just an above and beyond editor. Thank you, Charlotte. And what she did was she actively sought out authors and trying to help them be. I know a lot of people self-publish. But in terms of finding a publisher and finding and going and talking to different things, especially in the nonfiction space, I can't give any advice for that. So you'll have to reach out to some other authors that might have gone down that. Okay, so thank you for the question again. And then I just had somebody cancel out of my impactful training and speaking. So I have one seat left in next week's virtual class on Thursday and Friday. Again, if you have a hardship or something, I'm trying very much as best as I can to help as much as I can. So look onto the site or send me a message if you are interested. You can send me a private message. You don't have to comment if you are interested in that seat. It is one last seat. I don't do this class again, probably till the fall. I only do this twice a year. So check out it. Let me know if you are interested in that seat that just opened up. Somebody had to cancel with that. I have a Leading Amazing Teams virtual course with Jake in April as well. So let me know if you are interested in that. But my biggest thing that's coming up that will be public for people is I am keynoting in South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa for the Scrum Gathering Regional Gathering there at the end of February, beginning of March timeframe. So that's what's kind of coming up for me publicly. Everything else is private, but those are the options of things coming up for public. So I hope we all have a good 2024. For those that are looking for new positions and stuff, I hope you find something quickly, especially now that the holidays are past. I know how stressful that is. For those that are challenging yourselves in different ways, good luck, and may 2024 be the one that's very satisfying for us all. Thank you, and I'll see you next month. And I forgot how to end the stream now. It's been long enough.